We're live on everything but Instagram. So let's go live on Instagram. It's tricky because sometimes you think you're live on here and you're not. Okay. We're on there and I'm making sure we're officially live. Okay, we're live on all platforms.
Awesome.
Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay. Some technical difficulties, which I tend to run 5 to 8 minutes late, which I'm working on. So I'm about right in that frame.
Yes. So we're right on time.
I'm Amanda Marino. Welcome to Recovery Solutions. I have an awesome guest today, Diana. And we're excited to talk about integrating comprehensive care with individual psychotherapy. That's our topic. So I would love to just find out a little bit about more about you, Diana, and kind of what, a little bit about your journey and what your background is, whatever you're comfortable with starting.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you, Amanda, so much. I feel so honored to be brought on this live. And I'm Diana DeFabio, licensed mental health counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist here in the state of Florida. I'm based out of South Florida in Jupiter, but I can see patients, clients virtually all over the state. Originally a Northeasterner, though, made my way down south, not built for the cold. And I love it down here. Got my master's from Rollins up in Winter Park. And then when the pandemic happened, I actually was working in one of the hospital systems up there. So got to see kind of frontline what that was like from a psychiatric standpoint, the impact of COVID in real time. And then I had the opportunity to move to beautiful South Florida and be closer to the beach. And I took that opportunity to move down here. And now I'm a part of an incredible team, Lighthouse Health Group. It's a multidisciplinary team. So I'm one of the primary psychotherapists here, but our practice owner and psychiatrist, Dr. Zawatsky, is incredible. We also have a nurse practitioner. We have a psychologist, other therapists, offer TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. So we really look at the whole person and the whole picture. So I was so excited when we connected on this topic, Amanda, and what your team does, because I really believe in kind of expanding that lens and looking at how we can really create just the best for our clients' whole health, holistic health.
Absolutely. And that's the cool thing too. So all the things that Diana says that her group does, that's so many things, right? But there's still an opportunity for Diana's group to collaborate with my group, because we don't offer in-house therapy, right? We offer everything that complements or to go with therapy. Of course, we have, a clinician available if they don't have one, but we partner with groups like you. And there's so much, that by making sure the psychiatrist and the therapist and all these people are talking, the coach, like if they need more services besides the few hours that they're in your care, like we can all, there's so many things that can be added to help a person, right? That we're doing much better at today. And I know our very first conversation, you and I couldn't stop talking. We were like, we were like supposed to have like a half-hour phone call and end up being really, really long. So I just want to chime in to say hello. So we had a couple people say hello. Edward said hello. And
hi, Dr. Z. Thanks for coming in.
Yasmin said hello, who helped set us up today, who's my girl, does my social media management. So if there are any questions that you have throughout this process, we'll take breaks and we will chime in. But yeah, the first time you and I had a conversation, it was like we knew each other forever. We spoke the same language. And I was like, you have so much awesome stuff to share. Like, we have to get you on live because everyone needs to hear this. Like I shared with you, I've taken personal responsibility, whether anyone's given to me or not, to put out good content with good people like you, because there's so much scary stuff on the internet. So I want to have licensed professionals, which I am not, that, can share their area of expertise. Because maybe people don't know, what do you really have to go through to have your credentials? Because I think I'd like to just give a little love and attention.
Oh my God, absolutely. And thank you so much for asking that question, because it's something that I love to talk about, but I'm actually not asked very frequently. It's a long process. It takes a lot to become a licensed therapist. And I did 3 years. So I did my 4 years of bachelor's degree undergrad. And then I did 3 years of a master's program. And then I did a track in family and relationships. So that gave me the ability to do an internship working with children and families, to get the dual licensure for mental health and marriage and family therapy. But altogether, we're looking at just the master's piece of it. all those years, the 4 years, then the 3 years, and then you have to do 2 years of, in Florida, it's called a registered internship. So that's working under somebody else's license, a qualified supervisor's license. So the whole process to become a therapist, grad school is just 5 years plus the 4 years of undergrad. It's essentially like a residency.
That's why I tell people it's pretty
So
much
much.
it's pretty much like med school. That's why I give a lot of love for the therapists that I work with, because I couldn't do the work I do without your clinical expertise. And I always rely on clinical, recommendations and expertise, because you all pretty much went to med school
Yeah.
for
I
the
tell people that too. I'm like, we went to a residency. We did that. It was a really big passion thing for me at the hospital to really educate even other doctors and providers on the education and how mental health really needs to be brought into the conversation. I think one of actually the positive things of COVID was that we are talking about mental health more than ever. And it gave us these virtual platforms and the ability to connect with people. And to your point too, Amanda, you have to be informed consumers. So I tell all of my clients, if they see something on the internet, bring it into the office, ask me, send it to me. We will either tailor it to you, or I will say, not so good, let's get rid of that, and connect them and help them the best way we can, and partner with organizations like you all. So I was so excited to learn about your group and your organization, because just like you said, I see my clients 60 to 90 seconds every week, every other week. That is a small fraction of life.
Yeah.
That happens outside of the room. So
Right.
making sure that I connect them with their tribe, as I call it, their team, to really enhance their life, and the work we're doing in here is I just love it. It's so exciting for me.
Yeah, sometimes it takes some time. I mean, listen, some people are in a position where just, like going to therapy is going to be what they need, and going to psychiatrist and therapy. But we're coming across so many more complex families and individuals where they need a lot more handholding in between. Okay, like as long as there's success and we get to see some, my motto is creating lasting change. Like I want to be part of creating lasting change in whatever village or tribe or community that takes. Like let's do it.
Yes.
So tell me about your journey. Like I remember, I mean, I've talked to you a bit about it personally, but let's tell our viewers, our listeners. Now you started, your background was working with children, correct?
Yes.
You started.
So I started working. My clinical internship was working with children who were sexually abused and their non-offending caregivers. So that was really just deep trauma work, doing something called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. I now practice something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is also an evidence-based trauma treatment. But I really loved that foundational work that I had, because that program required a non-offending caregiver, unless the child was in foster care, to be a part of treatment, because it was really about the ripple effect of, yes, trauma happens to an individual, but it also happens to group, but it also happens to the family system, but it also just impacts just so many more layers. And being able to do that, help the children, of course, and advocate for them, which is another big passion for me, but also educate family members, bring them into the conversation, know that we hurt in relationships, but we heal in relationships. I come from a big family, so I'm a big family girl, and it's just really important for me to, doing that, and then moving into working in the hospital was very interesting, seeing just the shifts of what in Florida, what's called a Baker Act, so an involuntary admission, pre-pandemic and then post-pandemic.
Worked in the hospital setting during both pre and post.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how was that?
It was very interesting. It was really, being a frontline healthcare worker is something I'm very proud of, and I'm honored that I was just happened to be there and helping those people. But seeing the shift from, what you think of traditional psych patients. So you would see, diagnoses like schizophrenia or bipolar mania switch from, we were having patients come in that, were teachers and parents and overwhelmed just with the stress of going from virtual and having their whole lives changed and uprooted, to having
so much. When we think
exactly.
I remember when I was, trying to build, I was like in brand new phases of having my business in the beginning of the pandemic. And I had my daughter who were trying to learn how to do school online. She's in elementary school. My
Yeah.
son's first year high school. Like it was so chaotic. And then my daughter had a teacher who was a year before retirement. And this poor lady had to, I can imagine she didn't share with us, but I can imagine that she had some nervous breakdowns. Like she did not grow up in the schooling of, of online and trying
Right.
to,
Yes.
it was really stressful.
Yeah.
Trying to get your kids focused, but still work. And then
Yes.
everybody is, losing their jobs. And like so many things were happening at that time.
Absolutely. So when it's very common. Listen, we all anxiety is an emotion. We have thank you, Dr. Z. I originally moved to Florida to work for Disney. So Dr. Z just made a comment about being a certified Disney princess therapist. So we'll kind of hang that on my hat. That is a fun side of me that I can talk Disney all day. It became my fun job. And seeing those dynamics was really cool for me too. But yeah, back to your point, Amanda, of just it was everybody lives with anxiety to some degree. It's an emotion. And when you have these really, and on this level was a global level, just stressors come down, what was manageable and the coping skills we used to be able to use that did work, when those resources are taken from us, willingly or unwillingly, we've got to shift. And when the whole world really stopped, it made a big shift, and we just saw a total change just in the whole mental health care system, and even from that top tier psychiatric level of where we needed to lean in for that support.
Yeah, I remember the moment, for my daughter and I, that it was the too much moment. Like I think we all had many of those, but the first one for my daughter and I was all the beaches were closed, right? They decided,
oh my gosh, yes,
but the private ones were still open. And my mom lives on like a little condo on the beach, so we were when they closed the private beaches,
sure.
her and I, she just looked at me and started bawling. It was like our one thing we had left.
Yes.
And as I say, if people were like teetering before, that took them over. If you were healthy, it made you teeter. Like it just. It really was such a crazy time. And what did you see when you were in the hospital setting that changed from one to the other? Just curious.
Just that, exactly what you just said, that teeter, that really teetered over to now I'm intentionally or unintentionally medicating myself more, or using unhealthy coping skills like substances, or, attempting suicides. And that there were just really not, there was, as connected as almost we were becoming by being able to virtually, because I remember it was the longest that I had ever gone without seeing my family in person. So I'm so grateful for things like FaceTime. And I really needed a hug sometimes. And thankfully I had coworkers and I had people here in person. But it was, it was really big shifts. And I think it was just that teeter of how do we adjust, and what do we even know what this is and how it's showing up. And now we're seeing, how many years later, the after effects of it and how it's still developing. And especially with our kids, I don't treat kids as much on an outpatient basis anymore. But I treat a lot of parents, and I treat a little inner child, and even seeing that, that shift of like how our kids are growing up differently, like you said with your daughter, and the social skills, and it's just a big shift.
I remember my son, he had an advantage. He never had to be a freshman, right?
That too.
But it was also like he didn't, they wore masks. Not a lot of kids went to school that year. I wanted him go to school because he's like, Mom, I can't stay awake at 7:30 in the morning at my computer, and I have the video games right next to me. Like I can't do it. So he wanted to go back right away because he was failing.
Yeah.
So, but he just graduated, which is a blessing. But yeah, it was definitely, going back to that, it was really, really intense.
Yeah.
So after did you work for Disney before or after the hospital?
Before. So Disney's what brought me. I did the Disney college program after college. I majored undergrad in family studies, so family and human services, as well as public relations, because I also mass communication, because really I had an idea of wanting to work and help people. And I just thought those skill sets, even, that many years ago, would really work together. And it's ended up being, they're all, I'm a big transferable skills girl. So I'm all about like, let's see what we've got working with it and make it work for you. And so I moved here to work for Disney and then decided to go back to graduate school. And then after moving off the unit from the Baker Act, I did utilization review. So I worked on the insurance side of it, which was also very interesting for me, to just advocate for clients in a different way and really their insurance benefits, learning the pros, the cons of what mental health insurance doesn't cover all mental health. And sometimes it's not in the client's best interest to go through their insurance. So learning all of that was very interesting for me.
Yes. I love learning that about you because it's another way that you get to advocate for people is how you
Yes.
shared it with me.
Yes.
It's just you're a big advocate of, you want to help people get the most with what they can and help them understand, and understanding insurance benefits is something that many people don't have that
Right.
taught that anywhere, right? We have to learn it as we go. And now you get to help people with that too, and helping them understand the benefits of their insurance or what they can, use it for.
Or where to tag team it. Like maybe if we can let's look at all of this and say, okay, maybe therapy is something that I want to privately pay for, but your services, job coaching or medication or certain things, that's where it's best to use those services. So really, looking at what, of course, bringing privilege into the conversation because we have to, I have to, as what I bring into the room, but also looking at the resources that my clients have and that they don't have. And also how we can add, maximize, take out. It's really just that deep dive in that individual care that is, it's a big passion for me, and educating people. I know what it's like for me to try to find a doctor in insurance and co-pays, and I have a lot of resources. So for clients some of my clients that don't and aren't educated in this field, it really is it's a passion of mine to just help where I can and connect people where I can learn or I might not know or be the best person for them.
And that's what makes you perfect for our topic. So what is integrating comprehensive care with individual psychotherapy? Like, what does that mean? What is integrating comprehensive care? Because now we've talked about all the things that you have and how many ways you've been to integrate, right? But what does it mean to you?
Yes. And actually, I'll answer that, but I'll end up, the last tale of how I ended up in South Florida was working for an eating disorder treatment center. So so that was also very interesting from the partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient standpoint, and partnering with dietitians as well too. So looking at the family system, but looking at the whole picture of, okay, maybe we've stepped down from that higher acuity, but we're not quite at outpatient yet. So we need to really transition back into. And so comprehensive care for me really just looks like that, looks at taking a step back and looking at the whole person. Everybody, it's funny, I was reflecting back, and preparing for our talk today. Shout out to my dad. I'm going to tell him a story. I don't know if he's listening right now, but if you are, hi.
Hi, Dad.
I was thinking about this, and I don't even know if he knows this. He's a chiropractor, has been for his whole adult life, and has a private practice for many, many years. And I remember as a kid when more doctors started opening up in town, I remember driving in the car and saying to him, Dad, like, are you nervous that there are more doctors coming up and more chiros coming up in the area? And he said, no, the opposite. And I was taken back by his answer. Honestly, I was like, oh, really? I said, why? And he said, Diana, everybody has a spine. And I do my best to help as many people as I can. And that's why it is so important that I know the community and I connect with the community, because those people that I can't or need different help, I need to know who these people are, because the ultimate goal is that we keep our patients healthy, our clients healthy. And funny enough, that conversation has clearly stuck with me this many years later. And as I've grown and transitioned into being a therapist now, it's really stuck with me, this idea of we have to work together. I work really, really hard to attune and build that therapeutic alliance and rapport and relationship with my clients. And, sometimes it's referring them to other therapists or referring to, your team, Amanda, or referring them to a dietitian. I love working with Dr. Z and for my clients that we share, because medication.
Dad's here. Hi, Dad.
Hey, there you go. There's your shout out. But yeah, so that really, when I think about comprehensive care, I think of that idea of looking at the whole person. Medications can be life-changing, and they're meant to stabilize your symptoms. So then in therapy, we can talk about those harder life things or those easier life things, or we can create new coping skills worth it. So working in tandem, and maybe it's not meds, maybe it's a different type of modality of therapy.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's working with a coach, maybe it's working with a dietitian. So I just really like that. When I think of comprehensive, I just think big picture, and I want to connect and educate people on how we can best help them.
Yeah, that's like when, even like in the work that we do, or when there's, many treatment centers or things like that, there's so many people that do not reach out for help at this point, right? So
Right.
there's so many people out in the world that need to be helped. I never think that there's ever a competition. There's only room for collaboration. That's
Right.
just my work. And I know that not everyone operates that. So I've had to learn how to vibe with people that don't, but
Sure. Yeah.
really, like, there's so many people in this world that need help. And we need to know resources. Like, I need to know
Yes.
therapists that have specialties in certain things. I need to know psychiatrists. I need to know treatment. I need to know other coaches or organizations that do things that we won't do. That's being an informed professional by, like, there's just so much. There's an abundance. So Dad taught you a good message. He has another comment. Everyone's got emotional baggage too.
Yes. And everybody's got mental health. Like you said, Dad, everybody's got a spine, everybody's got mental health, and everybody's got an origin story. And if we can just sit with that and connect with it and really just really get down to the root of how we got here, understanding our past to better inform our present and empower our future is really how I like to look at a lot of the work that I do.
Now, have you, just because this kind of is relevant to this, but just kind of came up as a question, have you had, clients before that you've worked with that you're like, you know what, maybe I'm not the best fit. I know another provider. And can you tell me what that looks like? Because we do that often. We don't force a round peg into a square hole. Like, if
Absolutely.
we don't push for it, we will tell people that you're done with us. We don't want them to stay, right? So tell me what that looks like, or if they're not.
I'm not the therapist for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not, every client is not the client for me, and that's okay too.
Yes.
And part of my job as a therapist is really attuning to that. Now I kind of go to, like, you have to give it a little bit of time, because kind of like any new person, any new provider, therapy is very intimate, very vulnerable. And so there's got to be a little bit of initial, rapport, safety, trust, just feeling the vibe of the person. And, there comes a point where they need to, a lot of times it's also higher level of care too. It could also be, I am the right fit for you, but you've got to do more or step up to then step back down to me.
Absolutely.
Or when it's not working, it's empowering the client. I actually really love to also empower clients to give me feedback and to say, I'm a human before I'm a therapist. We all are. And I am going to make a mistake. I am going to say wrong things. Correct me. Tell me. Let's build that therapeutic relationship and rapport in here, that we can have those ongoing conversations. So if they don't feel like something's right, then we can have that conversation. And inversely, if I feel like I'm not the right fit, I bring it to them. I talk to them. And then in the back of my mind, I'm kind of having that Rolodex. If I'm feeling like we're approaching, maybe they need an additional referral or just a different type of therapist, I bring it out on the table and we talk about it. And I kind of think to myself, like, okay, who do I think could be a good fit for them too? And then if in that case, making that transition over with that therapist. And I'm actually working with a client now who a therapist referred to me for disordered eating, and we've all decided that she's going to stay with me. And we all talked about it and said, you can go back to her, you can stay with me. And she said, actually, I loved the work that I did with her. And I'm in just a different place to get a different perspective. Because that also can be it too.
That's it.
Outgrow a therapist. That's okay too. It's okay to go, I've done the correct and the work I needed to do with you, Diana, and help me find the next person that will help you with this. And,
that's the abundance mindset too, right? That's well, also doing your ethical thing.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
The abundance mindset. Like, there's no lack of anything, and that's how it should be done, is how you're doing it. And, I see it more and more, definitely now. I think there's been, like, a great shift in the community and our area, where everybody's more collaborative and wants to find the right care for people.
Yeah.
Rather than this, like, oh, my client, kind of thing. And that's just not really the way things are.
Yeah. It's exactly, you want to live in an abundance mindset, not the scarcity mindset, not if I lose you, it's a problem. And it's like, I need to model that too. And listen, from the human Diana standpoint, when those conversations happen, they can be uncomfortable. They can be, my goal is to create a space of compassion and safety and connection. But I also recognize if it's not me, instead of just to your points, but it's trying to fit the square peg in the round hole,
Right.
it's about how do I effectively connect you with the best people to help you on your journey.
That's amazing. That's what it's all about. What are, can you give like maybe an example of a case where you felt like, if something comes to mind, or like doing the integration has just been super essential? Like if you could talk maybe like some of the key components, like bringing the psychiatrist in or bringing in the dietitian. Do you have like any case study that would be something that comes to mind, like where you're like, oh, thank God we were all kind of communicating, or else maybe it wouldn't have gone this way?
I mean, it's a lot. I do it a lot. I'm trying to even think of one coming to mind, but I'm really so grateful to be at this practice and to be working with such collaborative providers. Because it can be helpful too, I have a lot of conversations with clients of like what they want to then bring into to make the most out of their psychiatry appointments, because typically the psychiatry follow-up appointments, are less time. I do, 60 or 90-minute sessions typically, where their sessions typically are about 30 minutes.
Right.
So it can also be really helpful for us to dial down, oh, we did a med change and I'm feeling kind of off, or I'm feeling like this symptom shifted, and being able to then have that information to provide to the psychiatrist or the nurse practitioner, also empower the client to then tell them what we talked about, making lists and say, here's what you want to maximize your time on with them, and then come in and we'll process how that went, or all of that with that too. So it really is just helpful. I see the clients also typically more regularly. Psychiatry is usually about a 3-month follow-up, give or take. So being able to go in and just keep tabs on, okay, this is kind of how they're doing, that pulse in the practice.
Yes.
And honestly, the clients really love having a one-stop shop. They love being able to come. I do my best when they have other appointments to try to stack it and be like, okay, if you want to come just for an afternoon or for a morning,
that's
great. Best to do that. But if not, they're like, we just love being here, because we know that if and confidentiality is important, right? So everything that's said in the room, it's not said to the other providers, but as needed to know information.
Right. Proper releases are signed, and it's for collaboration. Right. That was actually where I was kind of thinking. And so you went exactly where my head was thinking when I asked the question is, we love that when we make sure that, say we have a coach or a companion, and then they have a psychiatrist and a therapist, that everybody's communicating. Like not everyone operates like you, I'll be honest. So sometimes, many cases we come into and there's no communication between any of the parties. So we make sure that if there is, trauma being addressed in therapy, the psychiatrist knows, and then the coach knows. And so everyone can rally around this person the best and support them. Or if there is a medication change, that the therapist knows and the coach knows. So having all of those things, or if there's, something going on with, with that the dietitian needs to know when we have that involved. Actually, I need to connect you with her. I didn't do that yet. I don't think I did. Connected with Nicole.
We'll get to it.
But yeah, the just making sure that all those things happen, it just makes such a big difference, because then it's not just this isolated. Then it feels like, even if it's not all in house, that it can feel like a collaborative team. But the fact that is so great, because there's so many people that fall through the gaps that way.
So I'll actually, on an inverts, I'll tell you, Amanda, I had an experience not too long ago of a client who was working with a psychiatrist in a different, that I had connected with on the, I had tried to connect with on the phone many times, but a different part of town. And it was a pretty high acuity patient that I ended up needing to refer out to a higher level of care. And it was, disappointing to not be able to, I would call, I would, email. I got the releases from our end that were appropriately. The client assured me that they got the releases from the psychiatry. But it does make a big difference when you have other providers that you can really do that team with. I'm lucky to have a lot of it in-house, but even out of house, we don't have a dietitian in-house. So the dietitians I work with, I was just texting one about a new client we got that we're going to touch base on the end of the week, because we really need to look at our scope of practice. Like, she's going to do dietary work because that's what she does as a registered dietitian, but I can help out, but I can, be informed, and we can be aligned in the values and the messages that we're giving back to the patient.
Like, I'm not a therapist, but
Exactly.
I'm informed, and I'm not
Yes.
a dietitian, but I'm informed, and I work really well with therapists and dietitians. We've had one that has been working with us since pretty much the beginning, and she, thank God, is like such a great collaborator. But we've experienced that. We actually just recently experienced the not being able to get some professionals to respond. They're out of state, and we couldn't get them to. I mean, we tried every which way. We got connected from the
Exactly.
and so it just makes everything a little more complicated, because when we work together, regardless if we're in the same team or under the same roof, right, we're doing the best to show up for people that need help in all different realms.
Exactly.
So what would be something you'd want to tell people that maybe are interested, like they think they need therapy, like they may have a preconceived notion of what it is? Because there's a lot of that out there. So I get a lot of people that feel safe working with me because I'm a coach, and then I can get them to start with me. And then if they need therapy, then bring a therapist in because they build rapport with me. Like, because I'm very clear that that's not what I do with people.
Mhm.
So, but sometimes people feel safe, like they're scared of therapy. There's some kind of like, I don't know where it came from out there, that like therapy means you may be weak, or it's not safe or private. There's a lot of things that people that aren't in our realm, like in our world, we know now, but what would you like to say to people?
Well, and I think that that's also speaks to the shift, one of the positive shifts of talking about mental health more than ever. I mean, Simone Biles is just incredible in all the ways. But how incredible was it for her to say that, she had a therapy session the morning before her meet. Like, so we are now more and more opening up to that therapy can be and is for things like trauma and adverse family experiences or relationship experiences, but also it can be wellness. It can be like, who am I? I tell all my clients when they come in, kind of my style, the first couple sessions is dumping out the suitcase of life. So they're like, I feel like I'm dumping. And I'm like, you're doing the right thing. I said, I'll ask you questions along the way. I'll guide the process. But really, we are dumping out that suitcase of life and taking inventory. Some things have to go back in the suitcase, even if we don't want them to. So how can we fold them and organize them and put them in a way where we can get to them if we need to, but they don't impact other things? And then we get rid of some stuff that we don't need. We bring in stuff that we need now, or that will be helpful now, and really just have a better understanding and organization of our life, our relationships. So I would say, if there are any, in terms of wanting to lean into therapy, are there any areas of your life where you feel either they were working in the past and they're not working anymore, or you're feeling stuck in some place, and you're just looking for that safe place to understand, unpack, uncover, create and break new patterns and relationships. And then from there, we can look at it from a wellness perspective too, of, okay, how do we clean this up? But also, how do we keep ourselves regulated and good and being the best people that we can be?
And everything that happens in therapy is extremely private, correct? Because I have a lot of people that are scared of that too. And I'm like, no, that is probably one of the main things is privacy. Could you share a little bit about that?
And I would say that's actually the difference between, one of the main differences, not the only one of the main differences between coaching and therapy, is that is from an ethical, legal, from a HIPAA standpoint, that there's confidentiality. We're breached by that, where coaches aren't. Now, I would like to think that there is a sense of safety built in with many coaches, but it's right, but it's different. And so now, that being said, not everything you say to a therapist may stay with a therapist. So I also tell all my clients that too. There are limits to confidentiality. And, those would include, being a potential risk to yourself or somebody else, reported or suspected child abuse or abuse to a vulnerable individual, legal reasons, court orders, subpoenas may need to break confidentiality in that way. But typically, for the most part, what you say to a therapist stays with the therapist. And usually, if something needs to leave the office, it's something that I like to have that conversation, if possible, with the clients, but also inform them that there are certain limits to it, because the goal is to keep them and their families in the community safe too. So that there are things that we may need to break, but talking about most of the other stuff stays right in here.
Things that you're worried about somebody knowing, they're not going to find out from your therapist. I'll tell you that right now. And I have so many friends that are therapists, and I love that because I know that when I tell them something, that goes to the vault. It's just part of the deal.
Yeah. And it's okay to also sign releases too. It's okay to say, like, I want you to tell my parent about this, or my partner about this, or this specific medical provider about that. And you can also, again, from that education and advocacy standpoint, you can be pretty explicitly clear of what you would like to say and not to say. So on our release, it says exclusions to this information. So if you say, okay, I want to talk about this, but I really don't want you to mention this, have that. I really encourage people to have the conversation with the therapist, because if there is a reason why the therapist feels like it's needed that somebody else knows this information, I want that. I would hope that the therapist would be able to have the conversation with the client of where that's coming, what that reason and rationale is, but also the client can ask too, and to say, hey, would you say this? Could you say this? Why would you say this? Or if you want to bring in, I do a lot of support sessions and family work, and being intentional about, guiding those sessions of, okay, if you're my individual client, but we're doing a support session, what are we talking about today? How do we want to keep this here? Because you're my client and your confidentiality is important.
Absolutely.
And then the other kind of fun thing I'll tell you is that people always worry about, because I'm a human, of course. I have life. I live outside of here, so they might run into me in public. So a lot of people think too, what happens if I run into my therapist outside of therapy?
Yes.
And typically what will happen is I tell all my clients, I won't acknowledge you first. You can say hello to me, and of course I'll say hi back, but that's kind of that's the extent of the conversation. We don't talk therapy outside of therapy, just to uphold that confidentiality even more. So I make a point of telling my clients that, kind of to give them the heads up that, hey, if you see me at the grocery store, if you see me at the beach, I don't acknowledge how I know you. Of course we can say hello, but that's kind of it. And that really is just to protect the sacredness of the work that we're doing in here. Now, if they want to talk about therapy,
and you're a human. You're a human, so you're going to go out to the grocery store and you are going to bump into people in your community.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I know. One of the things, like one of the shifts of the COVID time was, I've been in therapy and on and off since I was like 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, if you would have told me before COVID, I would stay with a therapist for many years on Zoom.
Right.
No way. But because of the way my life is, it's actually been really helpful for me. I used to start and stop because it was harder for me to go in person with my traveling and stuff. But I only met my therapist in person once. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I went there for like almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, but it just gives you more flexibility. I do love in person. I just know that this right now in my life, that it keeps me in it by being able to have that option.
Yeah. And looking at that reality for your life too, and looking at that, it's more important to be connected with a therapist than to see them in person on a weekly basis. That looking at like fitting it into what's working for you right now, and that may or may not change. But right now, this is what works, and you can still do really effective therapy. Zoom.
Yeah.
Virtually, however that looks like.
Yeah. And I just would have never bought into any of this stuff. So there was, like, we talked about some of the challenges that kind of came in the pandemic, but there were also some really great things, like support meetings you can do anywhere in the world now, any day. You can see your therapist, you can see somebody anywhere in the state, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anywhere in the state of Florida. So that can also be great too. I've had clients that just pop up on my schedule because they're on vacation and they are like, I need support right now. I need this hour for me, and we need to decompress what is going on even on vacation. And it's great. Or lunch breaks we can do too. So it can really add that additional flexibility even for my in-person clients when they're traveling within the state for work or for pleasure, to make sure that they're connected and have that touchstone here.
I love that. Yeah, it just definitely has made it more accessible to people. Like, there's nothing, I mean, I still will go back to growing up, there was nothing like, especially being a child in therapy,
Oh,
going,
yeah.
meeting with somebody. She just back in the, I mean, she was creative. This is like, I'm 43. So this is back in the day. She took me to like McDonald's back in the day and like let me play with little cars and share with her and that kind of realm. Like that was cutting edge for a long time ago, but she knew to connect with a child that had been through trauma that I needed to
Absolutely.
not gonna sit and just talk to her in an office, she
Yep.
had to meet me where I was. And she helped change my life. So just put
And
the,
I love what you said there too about meeting clients where they are. And that reminded me, it's funny, we were talking about confidentiality and seeing, the therapist out in the wild, but also experiential therapy is also really helpful too. And I've had clients that I've said to them, now it's a different, we talk about that, right? We outline, what that looks like, that we will be out. It's a different informed consent conversation, but with that consent, we can do therapy at the beach. We can go to McDonald's and do a food exposure. We can do I'm also really creative and flexible in meeting the client where they are. And, if I'm a therapist that doesn't necessarily work regularly in homes, I have a lot of therapist friends that do, that I can connect them with for supplemental or transitional care. So it's really all about using, everything that we have to make it work the best.
I love that. What would be your favorite thing just about like the work that you do and being able to like, do the comprehensive work and in your practice with psychotherapy? Like what would be your favorite?
Oh, just holding that space, just helping people. I know it's just so um kind of easy, but just
Right.
being that safe place, knowing that there is no judgment here. Um yes, I'm a human. Our brains are wired to judge, but this space is for them, and it's me helping them just understand themselves better. We are who we are because of the people and the places and the experiences that we've had, some that have put upon us, but also others that we've chosen for ourselves. And how has all of that been a culmination of where you are right now, sitting in my office, and just being honored for people to tell me some of the happiest, but also some of the deepest and the darkest times of their life is just an honor and a privilege, and something that I'm just grateful that I can witness the highs and the lows of people's lives and their journey and connect them with themselves and other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is. I mean, you said it's something simple, but it's actually something so profound, right? It's
Yeah.
something really profound. Just kind of one last question I have for you before we wrap up. How important this is? I know I'm kind of catching you off guard with some things. They're popping up, so I hope you're okay with it.
That's okay.
How important is it for someone that's a clinical therapist or anyone in a helping profession to take care of themselves first?
Absolutely. It reminds me of, I was just visiting family last week and flying, and it reminds me of what they say on the airplanes. You have to put on your oxygen mask when there's distress before you help anybody else. I'm a therapist who regularly goes to therapy. I know Amanda, last night before we connected, I said, sorry, I couldn't pick up. I was talking to my own therapist.
I was on therapy right before you were on therapy
Exactly.
yesterday.
That's what you said. And we connected on that too. And also encouraging other therapists that it's okay to do your own work, that it's okay to, to be human. And creating, we talk about comprehensive care for me is knowing who my tribe is, what I go to my therapist for, but what I get clinical supervision are, because those are two different things. What I then get, Dr. Z and the psychiatric and the medical support for, what I get my therapist friends for, what I get my consultation groups for,
Yes.
what my family support can do. So
Love it.
it's really about, don't be proud of it, be empowered by it, be empowered by, I believe as a therapist, I need to actively, be looking and working on myself and making sure I know what I'm bringing into the room, and that's not impacting the space that I hold for clients, and know what it's like to do the hard work of sitting on the couch, because it is work, but it's meaningful, it's profound, it can be life-changing, it can be fun. And yeah, just really letting people know that it's, therapists go to therapy too.
Yeah, I know that with, I had a business partner for years who's still my really close friend, but when we, which I still carry the torch on without him, even though he's still, my friend and talk to him all the time, but we wanted it to be next level, be team centered, and make sure that everyone that works with us, especially those that are working with us, like very consistently, that everyone's taking care of themselves. Like, are you going to, if we have someone on a long-term companion job, we offer them, do you want to meet with a therapist? Do you want to have coaching session? What do you need? So keeping the team healthy is, yes, we're client centered, right? But if we're team focused, team is doing well and taking care of themselves, then we can make sure that we're showing up the best for our clients. And if we call someone for a specific job, we can easily say, like, how are you? Like, are you up for this? It's going to be a lot. And if they say no, you're not like penalized. Like, people are like, oh, are you going to call me again? Absolutely. Like, I will respect the fact that you were, hey, I'm not, I have a lot going on personally. I think that might be too much for me right now. I'd much rather someone say that than go in to do something that isn't a right fit for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And being able to create that space and hopefully continue the conversation of having a conversation with it, that what can we do? What can connect you with? One of the reasons I moved down here was to be closer to the beach. I love the beach. The beach for me is so healing. It's just incredible. And you can tell if you ever come to my office because it's all beach themed.
I get called, like I literally get like a spiritual internal call.
Yes.
You need to go to the beach, and I told you my mom lives on it, so it's no parking, no nonsense. So I literally sometimes I need to submerge, sometimes I just need to be there. I actually would show you my tattoo. I have a wave on my ankle to symbolize always in the ocean. I have to live by the beach. I'm born and raised here. I can't not live close to a beach.
And now some people are like, I want nothing to do with the beach and I live here. And I'm like, that's cool too. It's all about you. It's about mental, physical. It's about it's really, I know it's funny when I'm like, I love the beach. And they're like, I don't. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. So I won't see you there, but yeah, it's all about really connecting. And if it's, connecting people with even personal trainers or the physical fitness aspect of it, is it going to the gym or is it doing mindful movement? So it's really looking at the whole pie, mental, spiritual, physical, nutritionally, like how we are just all comprehensive people, and filling in what that looks like. And when we get pulled in some direction, some of those pieces of the pie, when we want to or not, shift and change. And sometimes we need to really take inventory, which therapy can be really helpful for, to look at and go, okay, how did we get here? What's working? What's not working? And just holding that space for things that, it's just about holding that for them.
Yeah, because there's many people, and I was definitely in this realm for a while. There's many people that are just going, right? And so you've never been in therapy. You may not even know fully what you're going for and what you're uncovering. Like, I remember after a 4-year, I was so over focused on goals that I just didn't feel for 4 years. And I didn't realize until I came down from it. But I was just go, 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 go. And that when I unpacked some of that stuff, boy, I was like, whoa. And and to do that in a safe setting and have those. So if you're going for the first time, give yourself a break. You may not know what you're going to uncover, but you will feel feelings and you will go through things, but you will be okay and you'll be supported.
Yep. Give it a couple times. I say, give it maybe 2 or 3 sessions, unless for some reason there's a glaring red flag. So of course, listen to your gut. And if there's something that just says this isn't right, absolutely listen to it. But if you say, okay, I like that session enough to go back another time, do that a couple times and see where it lands you, because that therapeutic attunement, relationship, rapport, that arguably is the most important in the healing work. But it's a little bit of a process. So we don't have to jump into the deep end of the pool. We can walk into the pool. We got to keep on walking, but it can start with the toe and then the foot and then this. So just listen to yourself, but also know, oh, this is weird. It's okay that it's weird, especially at the beginning or even in the middle or the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. So how can people find you? I know that due to a little push from me, you got an Instagram. I think I helped.
You did. Yes. I'm not your TikTok therapist, your local TikTok therapist. I will say that. But, based on, to really kind of come full circle with this conversation and growth as a person, this, putting myself on a social platform is a growth edge for me and a growth opportunity as a therapist for me. And I ask of and I encourage my clients to do a lot of hard stuff. And this is something that I looked and I said, okay, uncomfortable. And I'm going to do it because I think that this ultimately will, help me, help my clients, help connect with people like you. And yes,
Sarah's our
I,
director.
you can find me on Instagram, diana.lmhc.lmft. Still working on posts. Also, another kind of fun fact about me is I have a 15-month-old Cavapoo who's in training to be a therapy dog. So you want to join, his name is Frankie, and he's just very lovable. So you want to see our journey of him becoming a therapy dog, and then also just me, what's going on with us. Yes, he's cute.
But I do want to thank Danielle for helping set this up. Danielle on my team, who
Yes.
was like, no, you got to get Diana on. You got to get Diana on. And I want to give you a huge round of applause because you crush it on your first ever doing anything on social media or live. Like, you're definitely a natural. And like what we talked about, you have such a great, powerful path and experience and education, and that the world needs more of Diana.
Thank you. And then if you want to schedule with me or any of our providers, Lighthouse Health Group, I'm in the Jupiter location, but we also have a Vero Beach location too. So call the office if you want to schedule with me or one of our other clinicians, providers.
All right. Excellent. So they can find you at, what is the website for that? I'm just going to put it in here.
LighthouseHealthGroupFlorida.com, I believe. LighthouseHealthFlorida.com.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Lighthouse Health. I cannot say.
Health.
Florida.com.
Okay.
And I will put it also too right there in the I sent it in the chat as well too.
Awesome.
Yep, you can call the office. That's how you schedule with me. So don't schedule with me via Instagram. Instagram is just to, get me in the social media world. Any scheduling is done through our, we have great office staff here. So it's done through them. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was so awesome connecting with you face to face. I know, oops, I got off my light already. That's one little thing. You want to get a ring light. I mean, you look amazing. The ring light, look at the difference. I'm just going to show you, just kind of out myself. It's a big difference. But yeah, thank you so much. This has just been awesome. I think that everybody has something to take with them today. And like, I didn't show before, but your dad did send you this. Have to go see a patient, Diana.
Oh, that's Dr. Z. That's our psychiatrist. Yeah, I will. Hopefully, yes. But thank you so much.
We did have a lot of, Claudia D. Here's another person. Families heal together. So proud of my big sister. Oh, I love this. Look at all the love. You even shared. So you were even more brave than most people. Most people just do these things and don't tell anyone they're going to do it. You even told people. So I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Please, if you want to find myself or Diana, I will come back in and chime in the chats after, just for some of them that didn't show through. Let's thank Diana for coming on Recovery Solutions. And I'm Amanda Marino, the owner of Next Level Recovery Associates. And I love highlighting awesome professionals around the globe.
Thank you so much. It was an honor. Thank you.